believe. Yes, I believe you died for me on Calvary. So here I am on bended knees.
We are on session 10 of our book on the Christian and anger. We're still dealing with Jonah and his anger. Once again, Jonah was angry. It's interesting that he diverted his anger away from the Ninevites for a moment so he could be angry at the mercy of God, which is a scary, scary thought to think that somebody could do that. And it says that right there in verse 2, because it says in verse 1 that it displeased Jonah exceedingly and he became angry. And he tells the Lord there in verse 2, Lord, was not this what I said to you while I was still in my country? I fled previously to Tarshish. He's telling us why he ran. He says, for I knew you were a gracious and merciful God, slow to anger, abundant in loving kindness, and one who relents from doing harm. That's why he ran. He didn't want God to show mercy to his enemies. Just think of the profoundness of that. And I tell you, without mercy, you're going to be no good in the ministry. You have to have a heart full of mercy. You have to have a heart full of truth also to speak the truth to people that are trapped. But the mercy of God is so necessary today. And so the Lord then comes to him. And even in verse 3, notice how depressed he gets. So he's enraged in verse 1. Remember that? This whole thing of anger and depression. And now he's even pleading with God to take his life. Because I'm ready to die. I'm no better. I'm ready to die. He wanted to die. And he'll say it again to the Lord in verse 9. I'm angry enough. I'm ready to die. I want to die. And isn't it something, as he's sitting there, he went outside in verse 5, and he's sitting outside the city. He makes a shelter for himself, and he's under the shade. And he's looking to see, will God still destroy this city? And isn't it something, all along the way, God prepares a plant. God prepares a worm. God prepares a wind. God will deal with you in your anger. He will send all kinds of stuff on you. And he showed mercy. God showed him mercy. He grew this plant over him, and it brought him shade because it was very hot there, and he had this plant. And all of a sudden, the Lord, in the midst of him enjoying this nice, shady little tree, crunch, 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 crunch. The tree dies. And there's this worm. Where did that worm come from? God sends a worm. I want you to feel a little heat right here about your anger and your lack of mercy. And sure enough, he gets angry over that. And so thank God for that. And then the Lord prepares him a vehement east wind, and the sun beats on him. It's hot air, and the sun is beating down on him, and he's ready to faint, and he wishes to die. There he is again. He's so depressed now. It's better for me to die. He's crying now. He's being crybaby, and again, God saying, "You have a right to be angry with this plant." You're angry at this plant? And the Lord has to tell him, look, in verse 11, there's 120,000 people over there. They don't know their right hand from their left hand. Why should I not have pity on them? You wanted me to show pity on this plant. Can I show pity on these human beings? Wow, God was really, really dealing with him. We're going to find as we study Jonah's life, I encourage you to read the book of Jonah. It's a very powerful message of evangelism and God's heart for the lost and people who are in darkness. Certainly the Assyrians were dark, dark people. But we find here that anger is about right. How many of you found that about anger? I have a right to be angry. Look what they did. Look at how he treated me. Look at the injustice. I have a right to be angry. Oh, you do? How much mercy has God shown you? Does God have a right to be angry with you? I don't know about you, but as I look back on my life and I look at all the sins I have done, God has a right to be angry with me right now. I don't know about some of you. I know your background. God has a right to be angry with you too. He has a right to be angry, and I wonder if He held that over us and said, you know what? I'm sorry. I know you need this help, but you remember what you did about 3 years ago? You remember what you did? And God uses that against you. Ooh, we would be in a lot of trouble. If we held all of our sins before us, who could stand? None of us could stand. So anger becomes all about right. I have a right to be angry with this. There's an injustice here. There's something wrong here. And I have a right to be angry. God, these people are barbaric people. These people are terrible. They skin people alive. You can justify. We can justify our anger pretty fast. We think about how they treated us. We think about some injustice that's happened to us. Oh, I was terminated unjustly. It should have been somebody else that got terminated. And we all of a sudden, we find ourselves being really angry and riled up, and we begin to demand our rights. So years ago, I had a friend of mine. Why do I always have these friends that are getting in trouble? Yeah. Even in the witchcraft thing, I was all my friends. I gotta get better at picking friends or something. Something's wrong with me. I had a pastor friend, and it's sad. I almost don't want to say the story, but I want to just relate to you how I had to deal with my anger. Well, he had a good-sized church, and he was doing well. Make a long story short, he ran off with his secretary, crashed his church, left town, went up to the Bay Area, was there for about 11 months. He ended up marrying his lover, and she was like 25 years younger than him. Divorced his wife. Stayed in the Bay Area. Nobody heard from him for like a year or so, 11 months or so. Came back. All of a sudden, he's ministering at another ministry here in town. I go, that guy, the guy that crashed his church, the guy that ran off with that girl, yeah, he's over at another ministry here in town. Well, if I told you what it was, you'd know who it was. I mean, he's there. Man, how did he get back in here? So it's funny. They closed down that church. Another church took over where that guy was. Another church moved in there. And about a year or two later, with his new wife, he goes and starts another church and names it the same name as the church he had before. Here in town. Oh, man. What are you doing? Well, I guess some people didn't know what he had done earlier, so his church starts growing. Anyway, to make a long story short, a friend of ours in ministry invited us to their wedding. And guess who is officiating the wedding? This guy is the pastor who's marrying this couple. And I knew it. I saw it on the invitation. I said, no, not him. I'm going to kill him at the wedding. My wife and I got there early, and we sat in the front row. Lady walks down, a friend of ours, and her husband got married. And I thought, I wonder what he's going to say about marriage from this wedding. Can I tell you, he got up and, he did the regular ministerial stuff, and then he goes, I want to share with you so-and-so and so-and-so. I want to tell you something about marriage. All right. He says, I want to talk to you about being faithful in your marriage. And he proceeded to talk for 15 minutes to this man and this woman of how important it was to be faithful in the marriage relationship. And the whole time he's talking, I'm over there, you dog. I'm going to kill you. I was so enraged. I don't know why. I was so upset. I mean, I know he's a sinner. I know I'm a sinner. I know he needs Jesus Christ. But I was so mad the whole time I was there. I think, man, I just was so mad that he could be saying all this stuff. I go, you rat! How dare you? And by the way, his wife was the maiden of honor for this wedding. And my wife goes, we need to get out of here. You're too mad. I go, no, I know. I got to get out of here. And I had to get out of there. And I ended up leaving as soon as the service was over. I didn't go to the reception. And I'm going to tell you, to piggyback on that, that lady she worked out a lot. She was buff. She started beating up her husband, the couple that got married. And so I counseled them. 3 months later, she was beating him up. And so that marriage broke up. So by Christmas, they were split. Within a year, she divorced him. He divorced her. Within another year, she was married to another man. And all the while, they were all involved in ministry. That lady, and they never skipped a beat. It was like normal. They just continued on with it. And now I'm upset at them too. And all this anger is coming out of me. And you know what? As I'm sitting here listening, going through all this and processing all this, I was sitting there thinking, I have a right to be angry with these people. They're talking about faithfulness. They're over here. They're getting married. They're forever, for better or for worse. And 3 months later, they're separated. I even counseled them through several counseling sessions. They still went ahead and got divorced. And in the midst of all this, again, brothers and sisters, we have to guard our heart. I don't want to say it enough. I want to say it enough times to you. We have to guard our heart because people are going to do these things. Really do happen. I wish I didn't have to tell you, but this really did happen. It really did happen here in Fresno, and it really did happen with my friends. And it generated a lot of anger out of me. And as we said earlier, I didn't know I was capable of that kind of anger, but I was. And I felt I had a right to be angry because of what they were doing. And yet all the while, isn't that something? All the while they're over there doing their shenanigans, and I'm at home sulking and mad. All the while they're at the beach, throwing their beach volleyball around, and I'm at home upset with a sour. I'm sucking on lemons at the house. Isn't that amazing? Other people do evil, and I'm over here depressed. And we should not allow our spirit to be subjected like that. We need to guard our heart because it's not all about right. Can I tell you, and I don't rejoice in this, it has not gone well for those people, those two couples. It has not gone well. You cannot violate God's law and think you're going to get away with it. So let the Lord right the wrongs. Let the Lord deal with people's hearts. And so in the next session, we're going to talk about this further as we look at the Apostle Paul and anger.
You give me strength to run the race with my hands in head lifted high.